Welcome to the Kamen Rider Saber review, or basically why do I think Kamen Rider Saber is actually a decent show. Not the best show, but a perfectly decent show nonetheless. I probably shouldn't go into a massive amount of details because the show just ended not that long ago, but there will still be spoilers in this review, so brace for that. The plot of Saber is that a novelist joins a group called the Sword of Logos. This group is made of swordmen who use magic books, known as the Wonder Ride books, that transform into Kamen Riders, that fight the Majid alongside the evil Kamen Rider Caliber. Well, in the first 15 episodes, before our novelist Toma gets seen as a traitor by all his friends from the Sword of Logos in the second arc. Before they all rejoin him one by one to fight off the threat of Kamen Rider Solomon, and later Kamen Rider Storius. Saber's plot is pretty good, actually. Found a lot of it to be interesting, even though some of the ideas introduced could have been expanded upon better. There's also some pacing problems, but nothing that kills my enjoyment, but still noticeable flaws with the show. But what is a story without characters? Saber has characters, and I like most of them. Let's start with our main character, Toma, the titular Kamen Rider Saber. He's a pretty basic protagonist, falling to the guy who just wants to be friends with everybody type of protagonist, which I'm perfectly fine with. Honestly, Toma's a likable protagonist who over the time of the show becomes more enduring through his actions and believable bonds with the majority of the cast. He's not the most interesting character, but he works for the plot that he's a part of. Then we have Rintaro, or Kamen Rider Blades, the low-key best character in the show. His story is one of breaking away from the Sword of Logos, which he considered his family, an arc that's handled well, mainly because of how believable his friendships with Toma and Mei is, and the work they did to show us how much being Kamen Rider Blades mean to him. With scenes such as when he gets mad that he got beat up by Zeus, which causes him to overwork himself in order to beat Zeus. The struggle is tangible, which makes the scene where he finally decides to leave the Sword of Logos once he can't take the obvious corruption anymore so satisfying. Also, the interactions with the female character Mei are really funny and cute due to how oblivious he is of everything. A definite GOAT from Saber. Also, Mei with her hyperactive personality makes her just fun wherever she's on screen. Also, it's cool to see how she's able to bring Rintaro and Toma together. But back to the Kamen Riders of the show, you got Kento, or Kamen Rider Spada, and Caliber, technically. Honestly, I generally think Kento's a pretty interesting character. His entire arc is just him trying to release himself from the burden of Kamen Rider Caliber. The reason for this is that Kento believes that his dad, who is Kamen Rider Caliber, betrayed the Sword of Logos, and he decides the best way to deal with that type of pressure is by himself. Until he eventually learns, alongside all his friends, that Kamen Rider Caliber at this point in the story is Daichi Kamicho, or the Kamen Rider Saber before Toma. He wants to deal with the Caliber issue on his own, like he did before, even though his friends told him not to. This ends up with him, well, dying? Technically. Since he comes back later on as the new Kamen Rider Caliber, after Daichi Kamijo dies, and basically sees 1,000 of dark futures, and he wants to seal the swords in order to stop everyone from dying, like he has in his future visions. Honestly, his arc is pretty solid on paper. In practice, though, while not terrible in any way, it makes sense if you think more about how they were trying to characterize him in the first arc. The issue is purely in his actions. Like, it gets a little annoying seeing how kind of inactive he is for long periods during this arc, only come back and stay stagnant in his beliefs. Also, his whole sealing the source thing is only used twice, which massively downplays any threat he has. Again, his arc isn't really bad to me, and I generally like what they were going for, but it's way closer to the mid than being good, sadly. Also, the previous Saber and Caliber, Daichi Kamijo, was interesting with the amount of screen time he got, mainly in the angle that he did everything he did because he wanted to destroy the Sword of Logos for leading his friend, Kento's dad, Hayato Fukumiya, to have to be killed by him. Like, it's a decent twist and puts a lot of things he did in perspective. Then we get to Ren, or Kamen Rider Kenzan. I genuinely liked him throughout and the general point of his story as a character. Ren's entire character arc is about him being obsessed with strength, constantly trying to find role models for this strength, such as him starting out with Kento, who eventually betrayed him once to become Caliber, and then he meets Zash, who's a recurring monster character. The bond that Ren and the Zash shares allow for his general character flaw to become more apparent. That being that he's too focused on trying to find a role model for his strength that he ignores how actually strong he is. Or basically, he was too focused on trying to be like other people, he was never truly himself. The thing that makes this more impactful is the Zass's character. The Zass is a monster known as a Magid. But unlike other Magid, which have a story they're based on, he has no story, as he's just a mix of many stories. He basically had no purpose aside from just fighting, until he met Ren. Ren made him feel like he had a purpose to exist. He saw him as his brother, so when the Zass was about to die anyway from his book being damaged, he decided to give up his life in one final fight, how the person who gave his life purpose finally be able to see how strong he truly was. Then you got Ogami and Dai Shinji, or Kamen Rider Buster and Slash. They honestly don't get a lot to do in the show, but are still really likable regardless. Buster being a cool dad to his son Sora, and Slash being a swordsmith who keeps to himself but lights up whenever swords are around. Up next is another definite GOAT, Yuri, or Kamen Rider Psycho. He's such a genuinely fun character to watch on screen, due to him not being in the loop of things because he hasn't really interacted with people in 100 years. He also helps expand the lore of the series once he appears. He's just really cool as a character. Then you have Rika and Durandal. Oh, I'm sorry, Ryoga. Durandal's more interesting because that's the only thing about him. They're not really good characters. Rika starts out okay because she definitely was kinda cool as a female Kamen Rider, and also being able to manipulate everyone at the same time as a traitor. But she goes to hell once her brother appears and starts being his hype woman 24/7. And Ryoga is super boring as a character besides his cool suit and power. They're literally at their best in a whole other show's special crossover episode with Saber, which is probably only made that way because even the Saber writer who wrote that episode probably realized that they messed with the characterization over there. Now we got the villains. They're not that good outside of three of them. Legiel and Zeus aren't really interesting. Bot, or Kamen Rider Faustin, who first appears in the movie, is cool, and I like how his whole story of being jaded at life is concluded by Toma making him realize that he could have gotten help if it wasn't for how he acted towards the situation. Then you have Master Logos, or Kamen Rider Solomon, who's actually a really fun villain for the screen time he gets since he just wants to destroy the world due to finding his destined path in life boring. And then you have the true final villain, Storius, who did everything he did because he saw everything as pointless because he realized his entire life is predestined, making his poems, the thing he loved most, pointless to him because they weren't original. Which is a really good motivation, first of all, because having the main villain be a writer mad that he can't create anything original in a show about books is genius. And it also makes him a good parallel to Toma, who doesn't care about originality as long as his books reach people. This would have been better if this wasn't revealed in the second to last episode, but it's still done decently. And with that, I'm basically done. So, Kamen Rider Saber is a flawed show with a lot of places that could have been improved, such as some characters getting to do more, some characters actually having any personality at all, sadly. But what parts of Saber that are good are really good to me, and I like them a lot. But that's just me. And you want to refute my points, do that in the comment sections. That allows for more people to see the video, I think. Probably. Help me out, please. I need more people to watch these videos. This is a re-edit of a past video. Please help me get more subs. And anyway, see you in another review.